excellent. Okay, well, I'll jump in then. So yeah, apologies for not being there in person. I really wanted to be. I think it's probably really good for you I'm not, because you don't want me coughing and spluttering over you. Anyway, so Mike and I will do a bit of a double act. The really juicy bit, I think, for everyone in the room will be, the demo Mike will do of our platform, or the recorded demo Mike will do of our platform, to show you really the depth of capabilities that he's developed with our dev team. But I'll do a bit of the story setting up front. And the focus of that story, as it says on the title slide here, is about a journey that we're on as a business, but a journey we think is mirrored or needs to be mirrored in the industry as a whole, which is about going beyond kind of this notion of the Internet of Things that has quite a lot of baggage associated with it. And instead, what we've learned over the last year and where we want to go is about really trying to break down the artificial walls between IT and telecoms so that we can become, or the mobile connectivity can become just a core enabler of digital transformation. So that's what we'll talk about for the next half an hour or so. So a few intros. For anyone that follows Alan's blog posts, I was outed as the only marketing guy in the room. I suppose I'm not in the room anymore. So I thought I might as well own that. I'm more of a marketing guy. Personal background in MVNO businesses. I am at home in PowerPoint and Excel. I might have a tendency to BS, but knowing the strict policy, I'll fight that over the next 20 minutes. Mike is the software guy. That's probably doing him a disservice, actually, because he's also an entrepreneur with a proven background in building software businesses that people see value in. And he's really comfortable in all the protocols and frameworks and languages that you need to build a software-defined mobile network, which is what he's done over the last couple of years. So to begin with, then, I'm going to recap on the problem or opportunity, depending on your perspective, that we created Stacuity to address. And actually in doing that, I'll recap on some of the messages from our TAD Summit presentation last year. And the first of those I don't think will be contentious, and that's that mobile or cellular data consumption has grown, is continuing to grow, and will grow in the future, because it's become a core enabler of the way we live and the way businesses operate. So this particular chart, I think, is from Ericsson. Different providers for different reasons will have different versions of forecasts with different mixes of products, etc. But I think it's undeniable that mobile or cellular connectivity is fundamentally kind of vital in our modern society. That kind of level of scale has been possible to achieve, and in many ways, we should reflect on the fact that the mobile industry has been a big success story, actually, because of all of that data consumption is possible because of the industry's ability to standardize services that are delivered securely at massive scale in an interoperable way around the world. So a big tick in the box, for the mobile operators there and the whole industry. And that's been possible because of the level of standardization that flows right through into the IT architecture that operates within each of the licensed mobile operators, or in fact anyone that is running a mobile core network. This particular kind of graphic on the slide at the moment is one that Mike presented. So it's our view of what that internal architecture looks like. It was taken from our presentation last year, but it's very much designed to be standardized with each of those virtual boxes performing a specific functional role within the architecture, and also the interactions between those virtual boxes being very tightly defined. Now, as I say, that's been fantastic and a main reason for the success of the mobile industry in delivering standardized services at massive scale. But also it's come at somewhat of a cost, because following the standard architecture has also meant that mobile operators have struggled to innovate effectively for customers. They've struggled to be agile fundamentally because the core network architectures that they use to provide services and the business processes and also the economics that are associated with them don't allow them to do so. Meanwhile, of course, in the public cloud world, the opposite has been true. The public cloud propositions have been developed from first principles to be platforms for innovation. They're flexible and agile, and ecosystems have built around them to enable innovation. Because the mobile industry hasn't been able to deliver the same level of flexibility as public cloud, it's become perceived, as it says on the slide here, perhaps unfairly, as a dumb pipe. Because it's, the level of control that customers would have over IT services, for example, in AWS, they just don't have, because the mobile core, which is the engine of that control, remains locked inside the mobile operator and is hard for them to access. So whether it's security or the fine-tuning of data routing or any other way that the customer might want to configure their mobile connectivity service according to their bespoke requirements, it's difficult, particularly for smaller customers, it's difficult for them to do that because they can't access that level of control that they need from the mobile operator's core network, which is a function really of the architecture that's used to power that core network. Maybe the dumb pipe, is a bit unfair because of course mobile technology is far from dumb. I mean, it's as I'm sure everyone in the room knows, is mind blowing. Really, the incredible speed and volume of not just the actual kind of data payload that's sent around, but also the signaling and the way this whole ecosystem works is mind-blowing. But what we, have heard, from customers and our perspective on the market, kind of outside of the telco bubble, is that a lot of the innovation has to happen elsewhere because maybe I'll say, instead of a dumb pipe, the mobile core network is a black box. It's just inaccessible to customers. And that fundamentally is why we set up Stacuity in the first place, was to open up that black box, to make it much more accessible to customers and their suppliers so that they can innovate more effectively. They can self-serve valuable capabilities that enable them to get the most value possible from mobile connectivity. And by doing that, everyone should win. The operators should win because they will fundamentally have more and happier customers. There's more traffic flowing across the network. Stacuity sits in the middle as a SaaS provider, providing a platform that people see value in. And the customers have more control and hopefully more efficiency because instead of raising projects with their connectivity provider suppliers, they're able to self-serve some of the capabilities that they need to have access to. So that's the gap that we've been looking to fill in Stacuity, and we have filled it by developing software-defined mobile core network. And again, apologies, this may be my kind of BS side coming out. We've done that to democratize the control of mobile connectivity on a global basis, which is really, it's intended to be disruptive in a positive sense, to bring value to the whole ecosystem, to enable more innovation, as I say, particularly for smaller customers who don't necessarily get to the top of the mobile operator's priority list with their more bespoke requirements, to enable those types of customers and others to really harness the full power of mobile connectivity. And by doing that, we think everyone in the value chain should benefit. And our kind of benchmark for what we want to achieve is to bring the level of agility and flexibility that people normally enjoy or have learned to enjoy in public cloud services, to bring that into the telco world and actually break down what are really artificial and legacy-driven barriers between IT and telecoms. In my simplistic, non-technical sense, it's all software, and it should be much easier for customers to access control that they, would value in terms of their connected devices. So that's what we set out to do. And this time last year, we kind of set out our ambition to do that. And I won't talk about this in detail, but this was a version of the slide that we presented this time last year. And it was an ambitious ambition because we had a lot to do. We had to develop the core IP that sits in that pink box in the middle of the slide, which replicates the functions of a traditional mobile core network that would sit inside an operator, but does so in a way that's designed to give, from first principles, customers much more visibility and accessibility to the workings of that core network, so they can interact with every function, every event on the network, and build their applications based on those interactions. And the benefit of that might be security, efficiency, or various different things. And Michael covers some of those use cases, or give the illustration of the detailed capabilities in a few slides' time. But the core network is only valuable if it's connected into the wider mobile ecosystem. So what we had to do was achieve that by integrating with an IMSI donor or a mobile operator, someone who could help us plug into the global mobile ecosystem and would enable us to access their global roaming footprint. So we were able to achieve that with the support of Jersey Telecom and the team at Velos IoT. So that's live, it's in production, which means we issue our own SIMs, and those SIMs operate in 150 countries around the world, more than 500 networks. So fantastic. But obviously what we also needed to do was to build our API and our portal, the platforms that our customers can use to interact with the core network. But it's fantastic to say we've done all of that, and we're pleased to say now that we've launched it. So as I say, Jersey Telecom is our first IMSI donor. We've got customers trialing services, and our customers are MVNO businesses who are great at reaching enterprises and IoT or enterprise solution providers. So they've got route to market, but they don't necessarily have the technology that we have access to. So they're a logical customer for us, or solution providers themselves, and indeed developers. In line with that, we're really delighted to be sponsoring TATAC at the weekend. So the last 6 to 8 weeks, been sending SIMs off around the world with Mr. Bob Allen and his, the team, the virtual team that are running all the physical locations. I'm pleased to say some of the SIMs have actually arrived and managed to get through customs. So we're really looking forward to this weekend. What's been occupying Mike a lot over the last 2 months has also been building out our global edge network. And that's really important so that on a regional basis we can start to deliver an optimized experience for customers across the globe. That might involve reducing latency because we're able to deliver a packet gateway in a particular market, or enabling traffic to stay within a particular country so that we can meet regulatory requirements that a customer might have. What Mike and the team have done a great job of is kind of accessing some key partnerships with Equinix and Comphone that enable us to scale up that infrastructure very cost efficiently and flexibly, but also software development, the development of IP, which I won't try and get into, but using CUPS principles enables us to deploy those packet gateways in very efficient ways. We're in the process of onboarding new IMSI donors so that we can actually have a library of different IMSIs from different providers and actually enable our customers to benefit from a global connectivity footprint. But also, again, kind of this is the know the S bit, to be kind of really open. We've been on a journey ourselves, which is more focused on go-to-market and commercial execution, and involving lots of testing and learning and iterating about our path to product market fit. So let me kind of talk about that now for a few minutes, and that comes back to the title of the presentation as well, about moving beyond the IoT. So it is a journey. I think what we've learned over the last year, since we've been out trialing a live product, is actually just the need, how much education is required because of this principle which I described before, not principle, but just the way that people have become habituated to the idea that telecoms really is a black box, that it's beyond their ability to control unless they're a very big and powerful customer. we've spent a lot of our time helping people understand what actually is possible with if you have access to a software-defined mobile network, basically. And again, Mike will show you some of the capabilities. And that's a journey. And we've got a lot of work to do, to kind of educate, kind of the market about what is possible, but I guess more kind of practically to work out which parts of the market will become our key entry points so that we can build that momentum and help to materialise the future that we're really excited about. Again, kind of as a marketing guy, something that we've been very conscious of and had to keep reminding ourselves about is to not fall into that trap of talking features instead of benefits. And obviously this is where the iteration comes in. We found ourselves at times being so kind of excited about the technology that we've then we've had to then kind of take a step back and engage with customers again to really listen, start talking, open the ears, and then listen about the value they see, and then change the messaging in line with that. So an interesting journey that just will continue. And also, and again, this won't be a surprise to anyone listening, we've kind of started to really focus on partnerships as the way into our ecosystem, the way for us to identify the partners that we can work with that may bring an established brand and the credibility that comes with that. They may bring additional capabilities. They may bring, as a mobile operator, for example, actually kind of IMSIs and the kind of the value on the connectivity side. Different kinds of partners will bring different things. But what we've again, has become not a surprise, but something that's kind of a key focus for us now is establishing those partnerships which will enable us to scale. Basically, we know that we've got a very valuable piece of the jigsaw, which is very different to what's there today, and we've got to work out who we can work with to really expose that to the maximum number of users in the shortest possible time. And in that vein, we've also decided, learned and decided that it's important for us to move beyond kind of, the IoT as a concept. And just to kind of talk about that for a second. There may be different views in the room of IoT, but the way we now think about it, that term, certainly in terms of mobile connectivity context, comes with some baggage. There's a lot of operators and VCs that bought into a lot of hype, many years ago, and the volume, the revenue, and the profitability that was expected just hasn't materialised. Our view is that, in the market as a whole, IoT tends to be associated with lower value, more commodity-driven use cases like simple trackers, whereas in fact, actually, there are many use cases like HD cameras or heart monitors or whatever it might be, where the volumes of data, or connected cars even, where the volumes of data and the criticality of those services is actually very important. And the IoT label is not helpful. We think because IoT has sometimes been associated with remote devices that are out in the field, and so perhaps more vulnerable to tampering, and therefore more of a security risk, or because those devices may be dumb in the sense that they can't support encryption, or for other reasons, IoT has tended to become associated with higher risk. And then because the customers are coming on to kind of what our solution, software-defined network, if customers have the kind of capabilities that we've developed, which enable a much greater level of real-time control over the connectivity to those individual SIMs and devices, we think the risks around that, security issues, will be reduced. But historically, that hasn't been the case. Customers haven't had control, because control of those SIMs has sat with their mobile operator partner. And because of that, the tendency has been for the IoT solution instead to be managed on a standalone basis. There's been a Chinese wall between the IoT solution perceived as higher risk, and also, as you mentioned on the slide there, almost well, actually, kind of by definition, IoT suggests that those devices are, available on the internet, which doesn't need to be the case at all. But again, reinforces this perceived risk. For all of those reasons, our perception is that customers have tended to think of IoT as a standalone, separate solution. What we believe is, instead, we want to give customers capabilities to enable, quote, IoT solutions to be managed just like any other enterprise IT asset, to break down the wall between telecoms and IT, as I said. And that comes back to the title of the presentation, really. So as we move forward as a business, we're going to be talking more about digital transformation, and there's been quite a lot of commentary from various sources, I think, around the same sort of topic over the last 6 months or so that we've picked up. The idea that IoT isn't really helpful anymore. And maybe this is a positive sign of maturity. The technologies now enable mobile connectivity across a wide range of use cases to be managed by customers in a much more agile way. So that's where we're going. And as an example of the kind of capabilities, I think Mike now is going to go through some recorded demos of some of those specifics, and then I'm sure, Mike, you'll be able to do kind of one-on-ones later on if you wanted to.
Cheers, Tim. Thank you very much. Not too much bullet BS in there. So yeah, from a techie perspective, in true TAD Summit style, I'll be happy to do any dangerous demos later if anyone wants to see it live. It does really work. It's not all recorded. We weren't quite brave enough to do it up here though in the PowerPoint. But yeah, so the principle of what we built is, as Tim said, is very much about cloud style agility. It's very difficult to demo a core network. Who wants to look at protocols? Well, I do. But apart from, a few hands going up there. On top of that, there's an API layer which exposes all that. So it's still pretty tricky to demo an API. So we've built a portal at the top. All the portal does is call our APIs. So our portal does nothing that our customers can't do directly. So I'll just rattle through a couple of the highlights. I could go on for hours about this, so I'll try and be prompt. So the first concept in our architecture is this concept of a vSlice. So in the same way as AWS, you have a VPC, 2 o'clock in the morning, halfway through your pizza, you need a network with some servers, you spin it up. You can't do that on the mobile side until you do this concept of a vSlice. So that's the first place we start. Things like, off the back of a vSlice, you can obviously create things like VPNs and links into AWS and cloud, etc. And a lot of that routing is controlled around this concept of routing policies, which is like software-defined networks on top instead of a traditional monolithic mobile core. So Tim, if you hit the button, I think that's what we show first, isn't it? Yeah. So
hey Mike, can you just stand over to?
Sorry.
Yeah. No, perfect.
Yeah. So here's just an example of creating a new routing policy, a set of rules for defining how traffic to and from a particular set of SIMs should be routed. So let's assume these are SIM cards you're going to stick in tablets, you're going to distribute to your sales team. Those sales team need to be able to access various different back-end systems. So firstly, we're going to create a rule to give them access to the CRM, to the corporate CRM. So we're specifying a set of matching parameters to identify that traffic. So that's the IP address range, which is used by the CRM. It's web traffic. So for that, we want to forward over the VPN to our AWS. Sorry, in this case, a cross connector to Amazon for that platform. Next rule you might create is saying, well, we need to be able to print things. We need to be able to print things from the headquarters. So let's route printer-related traffic over a VPN into the corporate network. That's the IP address space used for that. It's typical, the appropriate protocols for printing. That traffic we're going to send over the VPN to the headquarters, but they also need access to the internet. So we'll create another rule which identifies all other traffic and routes that to the internet. In this case, we want to route it out from the US, so they always get a US IP address from a GeoIP perspective. So we've created that as a policy. Click Save, and then with no change to the devices, no changes to APNs, to anything else, that is the policy that will be applied to those set of SIMs. And as I say, I can show a live demo and make some changes to that later after this. So what's next on the list, Tim? Yeah, packet tracing, another example. When things go wrong or things don't quite go to plan, us techies always like to be able to dive into Wireshark. If you need to be able to get a packet trace from your operator in the past, you raise a ticket, they say next Thursday 3 o'clock, we'll do it for 10 minutes. Doesn't really help. So in this platform, you want to do a packet trace on a SIM, you click the button, that's it. It's now capturing all the traffic to and from that SIM, wherever it is in the world, storing it, that can be then searched, analysed and troubleshoot. So then we can either, if we're stopping the trace there, we can view the packets, or we can download it as a Wireshark file. So in this case, we can see what that SIM is doing real time at 2:30 in the middle of the night. So that's also something that customers ask for a lot. So next, what's after that, Tim? There's not too many of these, don't worry. Another one, remote access. So getting remote access to devices, whether it's a server, whether it's a device or a sensor, typically involves spinning up a VPN or putting them on the internet. Or what if you could just have an SSH console in the browser to inject directly in real time without opening up any of the security holes. So that's what this does. So it injects itself into the console, so you can do really important stuff like run Nsnake. What else do you want to be able to do on your Linux console? All things which really simple, but as techies we know, save a lot of time and make them accessible in such an easy way. So, something else on there, Tim? I think those are the important ones. Oh yeah, signaling, great mystery. Loads of magical stuff happens at the signaling level in mobile networks. So it'll be really useful to be able to get access to that and respond to it. So in the platform here, anything that happens in the network, so for example, a new data session being created, creates an event, you can hook into your event bus, into your webhooks, any other back-end platform, exposing all the information that's been happening behind the scenes. So as a developer, you can act on it, respond to it, and use it to drive your application. And that's probably, I could talk about this for hours, but we've got 3 seconds to go, so I'll try to do this one quickly. Network steering, something which is normally locked away well within the operators. If you have SIM cards in fire alarms, you want them to work whatever network they can see. If you have SIM cards in tracking devices traveling across Europe, you might pick and choose a network per country that you want to prefer and steer the traffic to. In our system, that's all configurable by the developer per SIM in real time. So the whole principle here is things that were always possible if you have very deep pockets and a lot of patience and the right contact in the operator. We can then expose and democratize to the developer so they can do themselves, whether they've got one SIM, a million SIMs, whether they're a startup or a big multinational. So I think that's probably it. Yeah, any questions on the BS side or the tech side?
Get away from the speaker because it's going to cause feedback. Mike, listen, this is the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle, all right? And having built things the hard way, like I know you have in the past, especially private interconnects on enterprise networks to mobile and for end-to-end applications, I mean, this is just like brilliant. And took me 5 minutes to prime my VPN up yesterday and interconnected with our platform. What I'm curious about though is when it comes to the, if you like, all these sort of like knobs and dials that you have, right? Where do you see this going next, right? I see where you're going with having sort of like local interconnects and POPs, etc. out there, right? But how far can we take this, and what's your thoughts on dealing with some of the problems we have with eSIMs and EU ICCs, right, and things with APN changes and all of that jazz. So where do you see that going, and how soon will we have something cool where we can again switch, obviously operator profiles and still benefit from all the cool packet gateway plumbing that you guys have built?
Great. I mean, that's a sort of perfect question. It's almost as if you'd set that up, because I've almost got the answers are already popping up in my head while you're talking there. There's some really good, a few points there. So for us, physical SIM, eSIM, we don't really care. We can support either. And one of the sort of awkward truths with eSIM and the whole move in that space is when you deploy a new eSIM profile and switch profile, you also switch in core, effectively, quite often switch in core. So it therefore means that all the configuration and integration you've done is suddenly lost in a way. So the IMSI donors that we're talking to at the moment, there's a large number for some of the reasons Tim talked about before: pricing, coverage, regulation. All those IMSI profiles are routed back to the same core. So when you do an eSIM switch, because you're going to deploy your SIM cards in Latin America, you don't have to change anything. It's on the same portal. The identity on the portal doesn't change. The VPN integration doesn't change. Everything's the same. So to try and solve that eSIM challenge a little bit. In terms of where we're going next. Tim mentioned about regional breakout. So we've deployed our US, Virginia. Our first integration was Amsterdam. So the next one, Virginia and Singapore, we've done now. So those are the main IPX peering points. The concept there being that you can control latency, you can control the routing of traffic per application in the same ways with steering profiles. And it's not just the fact case of the device will always attach to its closest point. All that's configurable, and I can show a demo of that afterwards, where you can say, for these group of SIMs, they're in EPOS terminals in Brazil, so therefore always break them out through the Sao Paulo P gateway. So those are the sort of things we're going. That's the direction we're going next. Moving away from the purely roaming-based approach to local specific solutions, but all back to a single core. Sorry, Alan.
No, just violently agreeing. Quick follow-up timeline on that in terms of like let's say timeline for the local breakout.
Yeah, so US and Singapore is live by the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're aiming for there. The next points of presence are really being driven market by market. So there's a few markets now where we've actually recruited sales teams on the ground. Like the previous presenter was talking about, we've definitely seen that there are industries where you've got to visit, and as we're visiting in some of those locations, we're getting feedback from customers and operators saying we need a point of presence, we need local breakout. Because our P gateway stack is all our own, so there's no cost there. It's a software. It's a software deployment effectively. We expect to run one of those every quarter at least for the next year or so.
Excellent. So again, thank you so much, Mike. That was a great presentation.
Thank you, Tim.